I believe in you. I believe in you. Regardless of the difference of your politics, religion, sexuality, I believe in you. When's the last time you heard someone say that they believe in you just as you are? When was the last time someone said to you what mattered most was not how much you were alike, but how much you're different? I'm pretty sure that you and I are quite dissimilar. I'm a Black American. The obvious, yes? I'm a Protestant preacher. I'm an economically responsible Democrat. And I'm the father of an amazing son. And I'm also dyslexic, which gives me a little grace and gets me accommodations. You and I might also disagree on some pretty fundamental stuff. I believe that God exists. I'm just not so sure that he is a he. I'm pro-abortion. I served on the Obama administration's, the Obama campaign for both of his campaigns. But I'm not so sure that Barack Obama was the best thing that ever happened to America. I don't believe in trickle-down economics. I say tomato, not tomato. But however different we are, I am certain that if we can have one simple conversation, that we could find something in common. And that thing might be tiny, it might be small, but I believe it's enough for us to begin something remarkable. I believe that you and I together could build something important, that together we can achieve something important. One thing that you and I have in common, if you live here in the United Kingdom, is that we're lucky enough to live in democracies. But democracy itself is being threatened every day, with authoritarian leaders gaining growth around the world. In the United States, my country, we recently experienced an attempted coup, and now our democracy is at risk of everything that we thought was true about America. One of the great threats to democracy is polarization. There used to be a time where we were able and had the ability to agree to disagree. That no longer exists now. We used to be able to really disagree on some major stuff, but we had a sense of finding a way to come up with some shared purposes and then working through the complicated stuff. But today, we are increasingly going into our bubbles. We are increasingly finding news feeds that only say what we want and going onto social media outlets and finding friends who only agree with us. Because we all want to be right, right? But I believe it's time to do something different. That it's time to actually engage with the people with opposing views. And instead of starting with fear and disdain, we have to do something else. Because what has happened to us is that we've started to move further and further away from the precious idea of common ground, where we could solve our problems together. The problem is, democracy can only function effectively when people are able to come together. When we split into tribes, begin to despise each other, progress becomes paralyzed. You saw this happen in the debate around Brexit here in the UK. When democracy looks like it's not working, some people will start to wonder whether it's worth it or not. We've seen this happen in the United States. When Donald Trump was running for president in 2016, I was in Cleveland, Ohio, on my way to a repast after a funeral of a mentor and a congressman. I was in an Uber with an African-American Uber driver who told me he was going to vote for Donald Trump. I missed the entire wake. I spent an extra $100 tipping him because I wanted to know why. I wanted to understand why he was committed. And I asked questions, I listened, I silently disagreed, but I listened. He said to me that I believe that Donald Trump can give me a job. I had a job. I was a construction worker. I was able to take care of my family. And maybe Donald Trump will build the Trump Tower in Cleveland. There was a sense of hope in something different that might matter. When I got out of the car, I said, Donald Trump is going to be president of the United States. If a black man on the east side of Cleveland has decided that he's going to vote for Donald Trump, that Donald Trump sees him, what had we done wrong? I wonder, what if we had listened to him and other people like him? Would democracy be safer now? I firmly believe that if democracy is going to be saved, that we need to truly be able to listen and to understand each other. And that's how we can get to common ground. So you ask me how you do that? I'm so glad you asked. Well, usually when someone starts expressing an opinion that's in the direct opposite of what we believe, we tend to respond a few ways. We try to convert them by shouting louder because, the louder we are, they can hear us. We display outrage, or we become condescending, or we totally disengage and completely retreat into our bubbles. I think there's a much better way to react. First, by learning how to talk to someone that you disagree with. And most importantly, how to listen to them in a way that enables us to develop empathy. Empathy allows us to cut through the toxic tribalism that exists in us so that we can see another human being. The thing that often causes us to shout or retreat is fear. Now, that's ironic because the best way to dispel fear is to engage with the other. A few years ago, I was doing a site visit in North Philadelphia with some colleagues who worked for a historic preservation charity. When it was time to leave North Philadelphia, we were desperately trying to find a taxi out of this quite challenging neighborhood, right? Picture this. A very posh white woman with a Birkin handbag and a stunning diamond ring, which honestly had me nervous. And an unassuming middle-aged white man. As we crossed the intersection, there were these rather disheveled two fellow black guys. As we walked by them, I uttered, "What's up?" They nodded. Then we moved on. Then one of them yelled, "Yo!" I could see my colleague shaking. She was shaking. And I turned around and I saw one putting his hand in his bag. And he pulled something out and he said, "You want to buy a mixtape?" We gradually made our way back to them, and can I tell you, we had the most fantastic 20-minute conversation. It resulted in these guys and their band being invited to be performers at their charity the following year. During that conversation, all of that fear just began to melt away. So I want you to put your fear to one side and start practicing empathy. And that does take practice. It's not easy. Empathy is like a muscle. You have to build it up gradually and keep flexing and flexing it regularly. To build it up, the first thing that you have to do right now is to stop avoiding difficult conversations. Instead of walking away from them, do like we did in North Philadelphia and start walking towards them. It takes courage, but I'm asking you to be brave. How do you empathize with someone who expresses views that you find offensive? The answer is simple. It's love. I've never in my life met a person that I could not love. However distasteful their words may be, their language, their actions, I can always find the humanity in another. Make it your goal to listen, really listen, and try to understand why they think the way that they do. And just as when you go to the gym, don't start with the heavy stuff. Stretch. First, stretch. And then awaken that muscle and start with the easy stuff and work your way up. And once you build up to mutual trust and respect, you might be able to touch on some of the tough things that you disagree on. And then ask simply, why do you feel that way? Use your empathy skills to really listen to the answers, and it might surprise you. I have a friend that's a white supremacist. We've been friends since we were 7. I certainly don't agree with his views. I actually detest them. But I've spent enough time with him to know why he holds them. And it's not for all of the reasons that I originally assumed. It's not because of hate. It's because of fear. He's frightened that he and his children will be erased and they will lose power. While I think he's utterly wrong, I understand why he holds those views. Some people worry that their opinion might be eroded if they engage with people who don't think like them. I can't promise you that won't happen, but would it be so terrible to have your view shifted a little? I'm almost certain that things that you truly, deeply believe in, deep down in your soul, they won't be erased because you listen to someone. They won't be erased. And don't worry by allowing someone to air their opinions that you're validating them. You're not. Understanding where someone comes from is not the same as agreeing with them. And if what they say hurts and it triggers anger, I'm going to be honest with you. It's a risk. But I think it's a risk worth taking. Tell yourself, it's not about how I feel, but it's about why they feel that way. But you have my permission to walk away from it if it's too much. If it's too much, it's okay. But do me a favor, please don't just give up. Try again on another day. Why do I think it's worth being upset and taking the risk? Because we can't rely on our elected officials to overcome polarization and to create unity. I believe that when you give people a chance to be seen, to be heard, and to be understood, that big things are possible and that unity becomes possible. I'm not so naive to expect that this is going to be some sort of immediate societal change. But we have to have courage to build something that we can't see. Rome wasn't built in a day, but every day a brick was laid to build Rome. The British are excellent at queuing, right? You might even say it's something that unites. Well, if you could just show kindness and understanding to the person in front of you and the person behind you, that's an important way to start. If everyone does that, change will eventually come, and let's call it trickle-along empathy. So let's stop waiting for someone else to lead us to common ground. Go out there, and you be the one. You know why you? Because I believe in you. Thank you.